What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q, our Tuesday edition of BYP from our very good friends at Played Again Sports, taking all your new and used sports equipment. They pay cash up front. They are money, as they say. And speaking of money, we got our good friend Ally Miielnicki. He does a great job at NLB Podcast, Nothing But Locks podcast, part of Zensports Podcast Network. She is ready to go. She got through Selection Sunday. She's got 16 brackets, maybe. We don't know, but we're ready to rip through the extended field, as they say. So we'll have our playing games tonight: Southeast Missouri State, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I know a lot of people have them making a deep run. Pittsburgh, Mississippi State tonight. Allie, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I am in 3 different leagues, but I always have the same bracket. I'm not like the people that they have this one going here and then this one advancing here. I'm consistent. I feel confident with having the same picks, and I just go like that.
And that's how you should be. Funny story real quick before we get into it. Years ago, when I was on the air in Delaware with a Fox Sports affiliate, we had Dan Patrick come on. And I was arguing with my producer for 2 days straight because I thought it was Bush League and just fraud at best of him to come up with 3 different brackets and change them.
No.
And Dan Patrick, a legend, right? You can argue one of the Mount Rushmores that turned around and he said, it's absolutely unequivocally, it's just fraud at its best. It's Bush League. And he called him out. So from that moment on, I have a thing with my buddy who was my producer at the time. 1 bracket, that's it. And you have to stand by your bracket. And I need a copy of the bracket. I need either it's sent to me scanned, email, text, by pigeon carrier. It doesn't matter, but I hold on to it. And you have to hold these guys accountable. You can't have multiple brackets. It's not good. All right, let me get your thoughts real quick. Selection Sunday, I guess the talk was with several teams that we thought were bubble teams. The bubble obviously burst. Rutgers, UNC, Clemson. I was a little surprised they didn't get in. Oklahoma State. Out of those 4 teams that I just mentioned, would you say 1 or 2 were deserving of a automatic bid?
I thought Rutgers, listen, they didn't have the best record, but they beat some fabulous teams in the top 25 this year. I really thought that they got left out for the wrong reasons. When you have teams, maybe they wanted some balance and putting teams like USC or Arizona State just to make the Pac-12 have a little bit more representation. But I didn't think either of those teams were more deserving over Rutgers. So I understand UNC getting left out. I said it last week. They needed a win outright. They didn't do anything for me. Clemson, Oklahoma State, you could have made a case for, but I think the biggest case was made with Rutgers missing out.
So North Carolina, 20-13, 11-9, not bad losses, not great ones. Rutgers, I think the fact that you had some really bad losses late and they lost 6 out of 8, I think that hurt them. 10-10 in conference play. Right. Oklahoma State, I think it was a victim of a loaded Big 12. They also dropped 5 of 6. They didn't have a ton of impressive wins. Clemson, to me, I thought really got snuffed. And I pulled up the numbers because in any other year, 23-10, 14-6 in conference play, you're going to get in. But then I went back and I saw they lost to a horrible Louisville squad. And I'm like, oh, man, you got, maybe that was it. I would have liked to saw them come into play. And then as far as the top seedings, I mean, Purdue, we've talked about them for a month plus now. Kansas, Houston, I don't have any problem with these number 1 seedings as I kind of run through the gamut. Alabama, I mean, we can argue they're the best team in the nation. You okay with these these 4 for top seedings?
Yeah, I don't think there was too strong of a case you could have made for any of the number 2, Arizona, Texas. I think they're fine at number 2. Same thing with UCLA and Marquette. I really didn't have a problem with any of the number 1 schools. Maybe I didn't agree so much with Alabama getting the overall number 1, but I think a lot of that had to do with my bias. Still, Alabama, they have the easiest road, I feel, to get to the Final Four, definitely the championship. I think they got the easiest region. I think Kansas pretty much got screwed in their region, but we could talk more about that later.
Yeah, good point on Alabama, right? So they'll get the winner of the play-in game. Then you get to arguably, let's say they advance, right? Maryland, West Virginia. Then you got to get by who potentially is San Diego State against Charleston, 12-4. Furman 13 against a 4 in West Virginia. I'm kind of looking through, Baylor. I think Baylor is going to make some noise. Zona, but it is top heavy, and it does give Alabama a nice little road to kind of
Yep.
skate into the Elite Eight, as you mentioned, make that run into the Final Four. All right, so let's start with that South. And I listed some games. We've got, like I said, interesting matchups here. I'm looking right now, 7 and 10, Mizzou and Utah State, and it looks like right now money's starting to come in on Utah State. There's your 10 and 7 matchup. Furman against Virginia, 13 and 4. Creighton, North Carolina State. I think North Carolina State's getting close to 5. Where do you see an upset? Where do you see a team maybe upsetting the apple cart in that side of the bracket to start?
So seeding wise, number 10, Utah State over Mizzou is going to be considered an upset. Actually, Utah State's favored in this game. They're 1.5 point favorites as of us recording this podcast right now. I love Utah State right here. They're one of the most efficient scoring teams in the country. It's a terrible matchup for the Tigers. They are one of the worst defensive teams in the country. They allow 74.6 opponents points per game. That's not good at all. I think Utah State not only wins this outright, I think they win comfortably in this one. I think Missouri should not have been a number 7 seed. I also like for the upsets, I'm going with Charleston over San Diego State.
Yep.
I really like both teams right there, but Charleston 31 and 3 on the year. They have phenomenal starters. I believe 5 guys are averaging in the double digits. I think they're just efficient. And those are teams that I really look to make first round upsets. And I'm also going with Furman over Virginia. I haven't been a fan of Virginia all year. I thought they were overranked. So that's my 13 going up against the number 4. I like Furman to win outright right there. And those are my 3 top upsets.
So classic 12 and 5 matchup, right?
Yep.
Everyone's got to have one for the upset. San Diego State, I like their backcourt. They do have some depth. Charleston, I didn't watch them a boatload, so I'll take your word for it. A little concern, though, you mentioned Furman. Is this recency bias here with the run that they had late? I mean, Virginia's a pretty good team, man, and they play defense. They played in a tough conference. I'm just wondering, the line of thinking in that one.
So Furman has and I did this research, they have one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country. I believe 46% of their field goals are from the 3-point line. If they get hot, if they go up early, Rich, Virginia is not going to be able to compete with them. Virginia, it likes to play a slow tempo.
Yep.
What's a 3-point game? It's a very fast tempo. If Furman can turn up the heat early and Virginia falls behind by double-digit points early, they're not coming back in this game. Virginia can't play from behind. Furman, once they take the lead, I think they will. I think they're going to come out hot. Virginia hasn't played well as of late. They lost to Duke in the ACC tournament. I think that Furman pulls the upset right here, or at least covers if you want to be safe.
What's the line right now? What's currently the line in this one?
I believe it's 4 or 5. The last I checked.
That's not, you make the case, you make a strong case, not a bad play. I think Virginia typically teams that we've seen out of the Big Ten, the ACC, even the Big East over the years, a lot of these teams that are defensive minded. I think what happens is when they're playoff tested, when they're March Madness tested, they know they can slow down the tempo. They can play a 2-3. They can put a lot of pressure. I go the other way. I'm wondering if Furman's down 16-4 out of the gate, right? Then you start to panic and you have to shoot yourself back in the game. But I'm going to bookmark that one. I like your line of thinking.
Gotta take chances.
What's that?
You got to take chances with.
You have to. You have. How about 8? How about 8-9? Maryland and West Virginia. You talk about a team that relies on 3-point shooting. That's West Virginia.
Yeah, I've just never been a Huggins fan. I just can't bring myself to root for West Virginia. I'm going with Maryland. They looked pretty good down the stretch. 8-9. I mean, you just kind of it's a coin flip here and there, but I'm going to stick with the Terps to win that one.
Comes out.
Put it down.
It's green. All right.
Let's go today. I like your thinking.
Yeah, there you go. For money, right? That's how we roll on BYP. All right. Midwest. Mm-hmm. I've been high on Houston all season long. I like Houston. I love their backcourt. I think they're well coached. I don't believe they get to the Final Four, though. No. I think they're going to get tripped up. I actually, call me crazy, man, I see Drake at 12 beating Miami. They're laying 2.5. I like that matchup. I think Drake can actually be a team that upsets the apple cart. I'm not sold on Indiana. Kent State has a very good D, but I think one of those teams might actually upset Houston. I don't think it's going to be Iowa or Auburn in that second round matchup. What I'm basically saying is if I had a team that gets knocked out as a number one seed early, we mentioned Purdue, but I think my second team would be Houston.
Houston, I want to like them so much. They just had a big injury to one of their guards. I believe it was Sasser the other day. So he's questionable. I think he'll be fine to go with the tournament, though. I like Houston a lot. I have them losing in the Elite Eight to Texas. I think they do make it to the Elite Eight. I'm not as high on Drake as everyone else is. I just believe that's the popular 12/5 pick. And I've been burnt in the past by taking the popular 12/5 pick. So I'm going to stay away from that. I do think it's going to be a very close game. I think they are going to give Miami a run for their money, but I do like Jim Laranaga's squad. I do think that they go ahead. Indiana, again, I want to like them so much because I love watching Trace Jackson Davis play. I don't think that they are good for a long run in this tournament. I actually am still going back and forth whether I have them losing in the second round or winning in the second round. But Rich, if Trace Jackson Davis, I talked a few weeks ago, if he can get hot, he's the guy that can carry a team through the tournament. They are getting a little healthier. They do have some of their guards back. So I'm going to trust Indiana to have a ceiling of getting to the Sweet 16, but I don't see anything more after that. I'd like Houston to get to the Elite Eight, but otherwise, I think Texas is the hot team right now. I don't think they're going to be able to compete with Texas as a shooting. So I'm going with the Longhorns to make the Final Four out of that region.
Texas is laying 13.5, 14 against Colgate. That has the makings of a game that can be a 90-60 type of game where it just gets away out of Colgate. Houston's laying 20, 19.5, 20, we'll call it, against Northern Kentucky. Kent State, I mentioned, you look at this matchup, right, against Indiana. They haven't been to the tournament since 2017. They played Charleston, Houston, and Gonzaga really tough. They haven't had a tournament win since 2002. I would not sleep on them against Indiana to at least cover the number.
I agree with that.
Is what I'm saying. So that might be kind of your, I don't want to say dark horse, but that's not a bad matchup right now. And that line kind of tells you something. You've got a 12. I'm sorry, that's the Drake and Miami line is 2.5, but that line kind of tells you something where I think you'll see a little more money on Kent State. Maybe it is recency bias with their defense. Xavier, K-State, there's a lot of talk that Xavier could be one of those sleeper teams this year. We know how well they're coached. We know again about the guard play. We know they have a couple of players on that squad. I'm just not seeing it. Like is it me, or I feel like every year we buy into this notion that Xavier is going to make the run. Gonzaga is going to make the run. Butler is going to make the run. I'm not feeling this Xavier squad.
No, in fact, I have them losing in the second round. I like the winner of Mississippi State Pitt to beat Iowa State and then move on to not only the round of 32, but the Sweet 16.
Wow.
It feels like every year since they had those playing games that an 11 seed goes all the way to the 16. I believe almost every year an 11 seed has. It just makes sense. These teams come in with momentum after playing one game. They get the butterflies out of their stomach. I like Pittsburgh a lot. I'd be more comfortable with them if they beat Mississippi State. I believe it's tonight. Pittsburgh has one of the most experienced rosters in all of March Madness. I think that their starting five is older collectively than the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA. So experience plays a lot in these first round matchups. So I'm going to ride either Pittsburgh or Mississippi State to go all the way to the Sweet 16.
Okay. Yeah. And you would suspect, I mean, look, no disrespect to Kennesaw State. People never even heard of them before, right? The smaller conferences. Xavier should win that game going away, but Xavier almost reminds me a little bit. I think they're too reliant on both of their guards, and I know Jones has played much better. They don't really have a ton of interior presence, and I think that's going to hurt them more or less, the guards and the forward. So I agree with you. I think they get bumped early. Texas A&M, Penn State. Any thought on that game?
Oh, this one frustrated me more than anything, Rich. Before Selection Sunday began, I said two of my sleeper teams in the tournament: the Nittany Lions and the Texas A&M Aggies. What happens? They get pinned against each other in the first round. I threw up my arms. Listen, I think Texas A&M got hosed. I don't know why they are the 7th seed. They finished second in the SEC conference. They didn't do great against Alabama in the SEC final, but they played very well down the stretch. Radford's one of their best guards that I've seen play in the SEC this year. I don't know why they're the 7th seed. And then you give a team like Kentucky a 6th seed, Tennessee, who's really struggled down the stretch. They got a 4 seed. I don't understand the seeding right here in A&M, but I am going to take the Nittany Lions to beat A&M because I love Jalen Pickett. I love his game. I think he's a player like a Steph Curry of Davidson a few years ago, John Morant of Murray State a few years ago, maybe not to their exact level, but he can carry a team to at least win one game in this tournament. So I'm going to go with Penn State to beat the Aggies in the first
Yeah, I
round.
agree with you. A&M, good team. Again, guard play heavy, as you mentioned, Radford and Taylor, but they're averaging 13, 16 respectively. As they go, that offense goes, right? And Penn State, I think that's a good seeding for them. Look, if you go, let's just say you get Pitt to win the playing game, then they get rid of Iowa State, and then they knock off Xavier. You could essentially get Penn State, I'm sorry, knocks off the Xavier game. Penn State can make a run here to the Sweet 16.
Mhm.
I mean, the path, if you kind of break it down, the path is kind of there for them. I just wanted to see one more game. We mentioned this one in the end. Yeah, we kind of went through that bracket on that one. But by the way, I didn't get your thought on this. The playing games, man, the lines they're so enticing. And unless you really know these teams or have familiarity with these teams, I tend to steer clear of that play-in game.
Yeah, I'm right with you. If anything, I look at the under maybe. Again, these two teams come in a little bit on short rest. I think that they might have butterflies. This is essentially their pretty much final game potentially of the year. So if I'm going to bet either of these games tonight, I'm going to look at the under, the total. I'm going to stay away from the spread, the money line, though I said I do like Pittsburgh over Mississippi State, but tonight I'm going to go with the under in that game.
All right. West bracket, Kansas, Arkansas, Illinois, 8-9, St. Mary's, VCU, 5-12, UConn against Iona. A lot of people are saying UConn might be that little dark horse to make that deep run. TCU, by the way, you can make a case that Rutgers is better than Nevada, and Nevada is going to have an opportunity to have the play-in game at an 11 seed, by the way. The Zags, Boise State, UCLA, UCLA is dealing with some injuries as well. Kind of first glance out of that bracket, the West, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm going with the dark horse. I love the Huskies. They've been my team all year. They struggled a little bit in January, but they've been hot since. I'm a huge fan of Dan Hurley. I love their squad. I love Hawkins. I love Sonoga. I think this team has the capacity to make a deep run. I have them in my Final Four from this region. And I love TCU. I think ever since they got Miles back from injury, that they've been starting to peak at the right time. They're a team that's kind of flown under the radar, the Horned Frogs, for the majority of the season. I actually have them meeting UConn in the Elite Eight. Yes, I do. I have TCU upsetting Gonzaga in the second round. I have them upsetting UCLA in the Sweet 16. I think UCLA is a little banged up. They lost their one guard for the remainder of the year. They lost another guy at the game against Arizona. So TCU, UConn, those are my two Elite Eight teams from this conference.
Iona still is coached by Pitino, but I'm wondering if and I felt bad for the kids. They're asking them about potentially the St. John's job, and the body's not even buried yet, so to speak. But I don't believe it's going to be a distraction. I'm wondering if UConn is catching them at the wrong time.
It's a fair case to make. I know that Pitino has all the experience you need. I'm going to ride with my team that I've liked all season, that I've been following all season. I actually think they are the best team in the Big East. I know they didn't reach it to play Marquette, but just because you don't win your conference tournament doesn't mean you're not the best team in your conference. So I'm still going to ride with UConn. I know some people are picking Iona. They are playing in New York, I believe, so they will have the home court advantage, but UConn is not too far away. So I'm going to ride with UConn.
I still have UCLA making a deep run. I do. I've
Mhm.
watched them enough times this year, and I know they've been banged up. I know they have some injuries, but they've got a ton. You talk about a guard heavy team. They are the definition of a guard heavy team. Those are the teams that I look to make deep runs. And then the other game I'm looking at, and maybe I'm buying into the 12-5 theory, VCU over St. Mary's.
VCU is St. Mary's. That's my other 12/5 upset. I always pick at least two. I told you I picked Charleston. Now I'm picking VCU. I love VCU anytime they're in the tournament. I know that they made that deep run back in 2011. I'm a big fan of the Rams. I'm just not so high on St. Mary's. I feel like St. Mary's is like this every year. They play in the same region. They play in the same conference as Gonzaga. They actually lost to Gonzaga 2 of their last 3 games. So they're kind of coming in the playoffs in the tournament, maybe not with 100% momentum. So I'm going to go with VCU on this one as well, Rich.
Yeah, St. Mary's, they are what you would call a team that constantly will get their 23, 24, and in this case, 26 wins. But if you take Johnson off that squad, and if he gets in early foul troubles, again, they don't have, when I say balanced scores, they have 3 guys, maybe 10, 11 points. Like, I think some of these smaller teams, some of these mid-major, some of these teams we don't know too much about, they might have that one player that averages like 18, 19 points. He can kind of be the X factor. So kind of to your point, I think St. Mary's is primed for an upset. I steer clear of the 8 and 9 games. To me, that's a coin flip. That's the way I look at it. And then you got over in the East, and this is a team you and I have been critical all season long because we know they're one-dimensional. Purdue sits there at that top spot. Memphis, FAU, 8-9. Duke, that's been on a wonderful run. Tennessee, you got Kentucky and Providence. That's a heck of a game. That's a really good game, Kentucky and Providence. And then MSU, USC. And you can think about this. MSU was basically a bubble team. So where are we at in the East? I know you think Purdue's going to get bounced. When's it going to happen?
So I think Purdue loses to Duke, and I did not want to support Duke at all entering the tournament. Now I wind up having Duke in my Final Four. I don't know how that happens, but ever since they did get Roach back from injury, they have been playing well. They are peaking at the right time, winning the ACC tournament. I just think that everything falls in line for Duke in this tournament. I think that they're going to beat Oral Roberts. I know some people are picking Oral Roberts to have the upset. I don't see it here. I actually like Louisiana to upset Tennessee in the first round. I think Tennessee has just been limping into the tournament ever since they lost Ziegler to injury. They lost 6 of their last 10. And this is a month ago, Rich. I thought this team was capable of being a Final Four team. I don't anymore. They struggle on offense. I think Louisiana beats them. Even if they don't, I don't think that Tennessee is going to be able to keep up with Duke. And I think Duke ends up knocking off Purdue in the Sweet 16.
Wow. So Duke knocking off Purdue. Maryland, Vermont. Who do you have for your Final Four?
So I have Alabama, I have Duke, I have UConn, and I have Texas.
Who do you have winning it all?
Here's another one I'll point out. Let's go back to
Go ahead.
the region. Again, we were just talking about in the East. Michigan State. I always love backing Tom Izzo when no one expects Tom Izzo to do much. So I have Michigan State beating USC and then upsetting Marquette in the second round.
Wow. That's a gutsy call. Yeah, you know, that's almost like we're rooting for the jersey, so to speak, right? To your point, because we know exactly what Izzo has done. So who do you have? Did you go official with who do you have cutting down the nets?
So I'm going with UConn. That's been my team all year. I'm riding the Huskies. I never picked the popular choice. So even though I have Alabama in the finals, I'm not going to pick them to win. That's the key to winning your bracket. If you want an outside shot, don't pick the favorites. So I'm going with the Huskies. I think this is like a Kemba Walker type year where they just run the table. And I'm going with Dan Hurley and the boys out of Connecticut.
And you guys already dropped the Nothing But Locks pod. So you pretty much went through the bracket, yes?
We did. I did leave a disclaimer. We're going to do another episode tomorrow that there might be 1 or 2 changes I make. Nothing big, maybe something in like the second or first or second round. Nothing that's going to really affect the brackets later on. But I will tell you, Rich, the bracket I struggled with the region I struggled with the most was the Midwest because I do like Indiana a lot. I do like Texas A&M, Penn State. I just don't know what to make of Indiana. I said it before, Trace Jackson Davis, he can really take over a game, but Indiana's consistently is really upsetting me. I don't know if I want to pull the plug on Kent State upsetting them. Again, same thing with Miami. I don't know if I want to pull the plug with Drake upsetting them. That seems just to be the popular pick, but I'm still fishing around that region.
Yeah, you can make a case for several teams, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And some of these matchups on paper, you look at them 8, 9, 5, 12, even the 14, 4 and 13, Iowa State there as well. That's, with the 6 seeding Xavier. So that's not a bad bracket. All right, listen, before I let you get out of here. So the buzz with Aaron Rodgers, it appears like it's going to be a done deal. Now, all of a sudden he wants a wish list of players. I mean, is there any percentage where you believe this deal does not get done and the Jets have basically put all their eggs in an Aaron Rodgers basket and now they have egg on their face?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Jets. I mean, they've dug themselves into this hole before. I don't think that you can just build your offseason over the potential of trading for a guy that's literally been sitting in the shadows, not making any contact with the world since that game against Detroit. They're missing out on some key free agents, Rich, going on now. I know the tampering period's done and they really haven't made too many splashes. I don't think, and what are they going to do? Recreate the Green Bay team with Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard? We saw how well that worked on the offense last year. I don't know what's going to end up happening. I still think in the back of my mind that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Green Bay Packer next year. I just don't see how this Jet still would have been done if he wanted to be a Jet by now. That's what I'm thinking. So I still don't know if it goes through.
Let me tell you this. So Rappaport just tweeted this out. Pelissero tweeted it. It looks like it's confirmed. Blockbuster. The Giants are finalizing a trade to acquire star tight end Darren Waller from the Raiders.
Wow. Now we're talking. I was wondering what we were going to do. That's pulling a rabbit out of the hat. I thought we were going to go heavy receiver. So, wow, that's amazing.
No, I wanted to give you
like
something to smile about before I let you get out of here. All right. So once again, everyone follow Ally and the gang at NBL Podcast, part of Zensports Podcast Network. I am wishing you the best of luck with your brackets. We will continue the march into March Madness next week, and we'll start to dive into a little NFL draft. And remember, too, we have to start hitting on a little baseball as well.
Yes.
All right, Ally. Always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments.
Thanks, Rich.
You got it.